Hello there guys, welcome back to another real analysis video. In this video we're looking at the sandwich rule or the sandwich theorem for sequences. Let's just read out what it actually is and then we're going to prove it, and then maybe we'll look at an example at the end. So imagine that we have three sequences an, bn and cn and some number alpha, some real number alpha. Suppose that the limit as n goes to infinity of an and cn is both alpha, and that the bn sequence is sandwiched between the an and the cn sequence. So in other words, for every term, any value of n that you choose, the bn sequence, the value that it takes, is between the value that the an sequence takes and the cn sequence takes, pointwise for each value of n. So for example, a3 is less than or equal to b3 is less than or equal to c3, and that is true for all n. The sandwich rule or theorem states that bn is also convergent, and it also converges to alpha. Hopefully that makes sense intuitively. If you have a sequence that's stuck between two others and those two both converge to the same number, then that middle sequence, in this case bn, it should converge to that number too. And that's what we're going to prove. That's what this is. Let's just remind ourselves also about the definition of convergence, because we're going to need to evoke this in a minute, a couple of times actually. So we say that a sequence xn converges to alpha if and only if, for all epsilon greater than 0, there exists a capital N in the natural numbers, such that for all lowercase n greater than or equal to capital N, the distance between xn and alpha is less than epsilon. Okay, hopefully we're very familiar with that by now. Let's go straight into the proof of the sandwich theorem or rule. Okay, so as always with a proof like this, we definitely want to just say, let epsilon be greater than 0. This is always a good shout, always a good idea, because we're going to need to use some stuff involving epsilon. So we need to first of all start by saying, let's just say that epsilon is like a thing we're establishing is greater than 0. Okay, now let's use the definition of convergence to help us say something about an and cn. So hopefully we would all agree that we can definitely say that there exists some, I'll call it n1 in the natural numbers, such that for all lowercase n greater than or equal to this n1, we have that an minus alpha is less than epsilon by the definition of convergence that we just recalled. We can also do the exact same thing with cn, right? So there must exist some n2 in the natural numbers such that for all lowercase n bigger than or equal to n2, we have that cn minus alpha is less than epsilon by the exact same line of reasoning. Okay, so we've done that. That's really useful. Now, let's recall that bn is sandwiched between an and cn. So on a separate line of reasoning, I can say an is definitely less than or equal to bn, which is definitely less than or equal to cn. And the reason I've left some spaces here is because I can do a bit of, do something clever. I can take alpha away from all three of these guys. And of course, because I've just subtracted a number, it's going to retain that inequality. So an minus alpha is less than or equal to bn minus alpha, which is less than or equal to cn minus alpha. And of course, I could take this even further. Hopefully we would agree that cn minus alpha is less than or equal to the absolute value of cn minus alpha. And also, an minus alpha should be bigger than or equal to minus the absolute value of an minus alpha. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, this is the cool bit. I can say that for all n bigger than or equal to, and I want to choose some capital N in the natural numbers, such that I can kind of bring both of these definitions in here right? So I need to choose a big enough capital N so that I can make these statements about the an sequence and the cn sequence. So I need to choose my capital N. I'm going to just call it capital N, but I'm going to define capital N to be the maximum. I need n capital to be the maximum of n1 and n2. So for all lowercase n bigger than or equal to whichever is bigger out of n1 and n2, I can say the same inequality, the same line of inequalities again, but I can add something more to it. So I'm just rewriting the same stuff again, an minus alpha modulus. But what I can now do is, because I'm only talking about the values of lowercase n that are bigger than or equal to this capital N, I can also say that cn minus alpha modulus is less than epsilon, right? And this guy here, minus an minus alpha, that's going to have to be bigger than minus epsilon. Okay, so now I'm bringing in these two inequalities from up here. And then this is really nice because remember, we're trying to make a statement about Bn minus alpha, or in particular the modulus of Bn minus alpha, because our objective right now is to prove that Bn converges to alpha. So I can only look at minus epsilon is less than Bn minus alpha, which is less than epsilon, right? Just by looking at only a subset of this inequality. If Bn minus alpha is between minus epsilon and epsilon, hopefully we all agree that this is going to directly tell us that the absolute value of Bn minus alpha is less than epsilon. And this is for all n bigger than or equal to this capital N that we've defined to be the larger of n1 and n2. And that basically does it. So what have we just shown? We've just shown that for all epsilon greater than 0, there exists an n in the natural numbers, right? We found it, we defined it. It's the bigger of n1 and n2. There exists an n in the natural numbers such that for all n bigger than or equal to capital N, the modulus of Bn minus alpha is less than epsilon. That is literally the definition of what it means for the Bn sequence to converge to alpha. So that has proven the sandwich rule or theorem. Let me just zoom out so we can see every single thing that we did. It's actually not too crazy. It's not too conceptual for this one. There you go. There it all is on the same page at the same time. We have proven that the Bn sequence does indeed converge to alpha using the definition of convergence. Hopefully that makes sense. Pause the video if you need to. Now let's look at a quick application of the sandwich rule. Why would we even want to use this? Let me show you. So imagine that we fix k to be a natural number and we come up with some sequence an given by an equals n to the minus k for all n in the natural numbers. I'm going to show you in not very long, very quickly, I'm going to show you that n to the k converges to 0 regardless of what k is. So I don't need to now use the definition of convergence and get under the hood and do my epsilon n and stuff like that. I've got the sandwich rule. I've got the sandwich theorem. So now I can just use that, and as long as I can bound my n to the minus k sequence, if I can sandwich it between two sequences that converge to the same thing, then my n to the minus k will converge to it too. I just need to make one simple observation. Hopefully you guys will agree with me that 0 is less than or equal to n to the minus k for any value of n and for any value of k, both of them being natural numbers. Hopefully you guys would agree with that. Would you also agree that it's less than or equal to n to the minus 1, right? Because k can only be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. And n to the minus k means 1 over n to the k. So for any value of k bigger than 1, n to the minus k will be less than n to the minus 1. So hopefully we agree with this inequality here. And the magnificent part of this is that both of these sequences here, the 0 sequence is just a constant, of course it converges to 0. And this sequence here, this n to the minus 1 sequence, this converges to 0 as well. And if you don't believe me, of course you could prove it very easily. It would be a very simple application of the definition of convergence. They both converge to 0. Now that means, because of these two things, first of all, n to the minus k being sandwiched between them. Second of all, the fact that those outside ones, the bread, if you will, in the sandwich rule, because they both converge to the same number, 0, it means that the middle one, the one that we're interested in, must converge to 0 too. So by the sandwich rule / theorem, I have the limit as n goes to infinity of n to the minus k is equal to 0. This is really useful because regardless of what k is, I can now say by the sandwich rule, I know what this converges to. So if I ever have a situation where I've got n to the power of minus 7 or something, I don't need to do any epsilon n stuff. I know this just converges to 0 as n goes to infinity, based simply on the sandwich rule. And this is something that's going to come up in the next few videos as well, by the way. When we see some quite complicated stuff, we're building up these rules like the sandwich rule in order for us to evaluate limits much easier without having to use the epsilon n stuff, because that can be really either tedious, difficult, or impossible depending on the question. So that's just one example of the sandwich rule. Obviously there's more. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that very, very tasty theorem. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. I'd be very, very happy, delighted in fact, to get back to you, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.